Welcome to the Stories in EDU podcast, the show where we talk with real educators and hear their powerful impact. Their stories will grab you, inspire you, and show you the reach of the work we do. And now, the Bretzman Group presents your hosts, Josh Gauthier and Mandy Taylor.
Welcome back to another episode of Stories in EDU, the podcast where you get to hear great stories from educators all over the country and the world. And we hope that you leave inspired as you hear what's going on with other educators out there. Man, Jason, it's first time that you've had a chance to really sub in with Mandy not being able to be here today. I don't know if we mentioned this a lot, but you have a very instrumental role in a couple ways. But the biggest thing you do is you actually produce and get all these things to where they need to go. So from your perspective as somebody who has to see every episode and gets to see like the raw form of it, what are your thoughts as you go through it? What's a highlight for you so far?
Well, I did have the honor of being a guest on your first show, and I've listened to, intently to everyone since then. And I just am inspired every time, and I want to share it with more people every time because there's so much good commentary. There's so many good things that so many great teachers and educators are doing throughout the country, and you've talked to educators throughout the world now. I just really enjoy it for my own, professional benefit, and then the extra benefit of sharing it with other people. I think the opportunity to celebrate and share and amplify other people's voices, it's just a really special thing that you're doing here, and I'm just happy to be part of it.
Well, we are very happy that you do so many really important instrumental things with the Bretzman Group and making this come to life. And as far as sharing,
the only instrument I play, so.
Well, we're going to make some great music tonight as we amplify the voice of Missy Emler, who is joining us, who is a fellow Wisconsinite. Welcome to the podcast, Missy.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited. I've got tons of stories in EDU.
All right. Well, we're going to get started soon. Give us the quick who you are and what you do.
It's a really interesting question, and actually I was thinking about this the other day that I need to have a much better and more concise answer to this question. So here it is. I'm a multi-passionate educational entrepreneur. I have a lot of crazy things going on. So I work at a local regional service agency. I work at CESA 3, and we have lots of great things going on in our part of the state. I really think the work of regional service agencies across the country is really important in order to sort of move the mission and the direction of school forward. And I also work with Will Richardson and Bruce Dixon at Modern Learners. And I don't even know how to explain all of the crazy things that we try to do in our side hustle, to say the least. It's super fun. And I think it has a super impact on educators across the globe as well. So that work is really important to me too.
Awesome. Very interesting stuff. Now, CESA 3, for those that aren't familiar with Wisconsin education, we have, I think, 12 CESAs in the state. There are regions that include several counties that offer services to all the school districts within that county. Excellent. Well, we'll dig into possibly that and possibly some other things. But first, we're going to do our lightning round with the Game of Stories cards by the Bretzman Group. So we've got our card for tonight that says, and I mean, if you're listening for the first time, I should mention how this works is that each one of us is going to tell a quick story for 1 minute. We will time it, and then we'll use this kind of as a launch board to go into our stories the rest of the time. So here we go. Join a Twitter chat. Tell a story of joining a Twitter chat to lurk and learn, to ask questions, to share ideas, or to moderate it. What did you learn from the process? What tips could you give? What did you learn? And what did you share? And what connections did you make? Holy moly, lots of questions to think about there.
Am I going first?
Hey,
I'm
you get to
going
go-
first.
You're the
Oh,
guest.
He considers that to be an honor,
It is an honor. It's an absolute honor.
also called the hot seat.
Okay, well, here I go. So I joined Twitter, I think in like November of 2011. And it was a really exciting time because I really had just finished my ed admin program and I needed to keep learning. And the funniest thing was it was the night before our major state conference, or the night or a few nights before our major state conference, the Slate conference in Wisconsin. And the pencil chat, hashtag pencil chat came up. And I was talking about it with everybody I know. And the pencil chat was like, whatever you do, anytime you say technology, replace it with pencil. Because the same thing happened back in the day when they added pencils to the classroom. And so I was telling everybody I knew about it, and everybody kind of thought I was crazy. And my colleague that went to the Slate conference with me was laughing at me. And then during the keynote presenter mentioned hashtag pencil chat, and suddenly I was cool.
Amazing. And you even had time to spare. That's succinct.
Bank that for next time.
Yes, indeed. All right. Sony, are you ready?
Sure, I'm ready.
I'll click when you start.
All right. So I teach government and politics and civics, and so everybody in that is on Twitter. And so I got on Twitter to see what it was all about. And Twitter asked me what I was doing right now, and I was waiting for a counteroffer on selling our first home. And that was my status on Twitter for about 2 years until I actually went to a conference where Will Richardson was speaking, and he was showing his screen and his Twitter feed and everything. And he said, you should be on Twitter and be a connected educator. And I'm like, I don't get it. And somebody from the audience said, okay, I know I'm supposed to use technology and all this kind of stuff. I am a French teacher. So how do I use technology in French class? And Will Richardson said, I don't know. I was an English teacher. Let me ask. And he went to TweetDeck and he typed it in. And within a minute or so, there was answer after answer after answer being shared from around the world with links and blogs and ideas. And I said, I get it now. Twitter, connected. I'm in.
Wow, what a powerful moment. And to think how close that could have been to going the other direction. So that's good that worked out. My live demos like that never go like that. Hey, everybody, to my 5,000 followers, I've got a Twitter training tomorrow. Hey, what do you think about this? Add something next day. Oh, good, nobody's added. This is gonna really seal the deal.
Well, and I think people think that you jump into Twitter and all of a sudden you're the moderator and, you're talking with the world, and it clearly wasn't that for me. I lurked and learned and tried to figure out what an RT is, and I Googled things and tried to understand the language. It's a lot easier now where you can actually use more characters and more words. But then I would say it was a couple months after I started going to the Flip Class chat where I actually asked a question and then people responded, and it was like, whoa, this is cool. And then I think probably another couple of weeks where I actually contributed, and then people, liked it and said, hey, that's a good idea. And then they're like, this is really cool. I want to keep doing this.
It is a process, and it kind of takes time and modeling and some success, of course. I should probably do a story.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm going to go and mention something that happened recently. I had a group participating in a Fireside PD this summer, which was a super cool experience. If you didn't know, Jason's kind of started that whole thing. And anyway, so really the idea is we just meet in my house and we talk about stuff and we learn together. And one of the things we did is we actually got everybody on Twitter, because that was one of the main requirements. And we just did a Twitter chat within the group. We read an article together, and then we did a chat about it. And we put questions out, and other people jumped in and answered. But one person who was there said, I've been to lots of sessions where people talk about Twitter and getting on Twitter and all this stuff, and it just didn't make sense to me. But when we actually sat down and did a Twitter chat together as a group, it clicked. It made sense. And I thought, well, that was cool. I think we got to find more situations where we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
We did it. Lightning round.
Yeah, and you know what? Twitter stock went up yesterday, drastically. Did y'all know that? After years of declining like usership or whatever, it's on the rise, people. It's coming back at you.
Hi, if you've made the great decision to flip your class, we've put together this great book for you called Flipping 2.0. It's practical strategies for flipping your class. It's sort of like a how-to manual where the authors tell you what you could do by showing you what they did in their classrooms. It's 2 chapters on math, science, social studies, and English, 2 chapters on technology, 1 just on Google. There's flipping in grade school and a chapter on flipping in middle school. There's a chapter on collaboration as a flipped class teacher, and also, to get you started, part-time flipping. And there's even something for your administrators and coaches as well. There's a chapter about flipping your professional development. There's a great chapter on world languages, and even a chapter on mastery level learning. With a foreword by Aaron Sams, I think you'll find this entire book a whole lot of edu awesome. Get your copy today at tinyurl.com/flipping20.
Good, because I don't know how I would talk to people without Twitter these days. Well, we're talking right now. I mean,
We're Zooming.
We are zooming into the future. We are zooming into some great stories from Missy. So Missy, I know you, when we were talking a little bit beforehand, one of the things that you were really passionate about and kind of why we went with the Twitter card was a situation where you got to have some social media interns.
So my interns, my social media interns, that was an experiment that was super rewarding, and essentially it just was so rewarding. I guess I don't even know how to explain it, except that I believe, like Joe Sanfilippo, that you can change culture in as little as 10 seconds just by how you interact with people and the stories that you tell. And so my social media interns happened because I knew when I took over being principal at a small rural school in Wisconsin that they needed to tell their story more. I mean, our website was dated, and the community kind of complained about things, and I was never quite sure why we didn't tell more positive stories. And so I asked the board first if we could get a Facebook page, because this was prior to the algorithm, so it was a little easier to tell your story prior to those coming into play. And I remember the board being very hesitant. And I actually remember somebody before I actually was in the position said, "Oh, don't even ask. They will never let you do that." Well, 6 months in, I was like, yeah, we got to do this because it's crazy.
Well, you seem like a person who always follows the rules and does what you're told, right?
Right. Yeah, I think I've missed that. So I asked, I actually was surprised, and I did ask before I did it. My job was on the line. So normally I would have begged for forgiveness, but this was pretty a big deal to them. And they said, okay, let's try it. And so I did it. And you know what? I would go home at night and I'd be like, shoot, crap, I forgot to post something on the Facebook page, because I was so caught up in what was going on. And a month later, after I had been stressing about like, oh, I need to post, what am I going to post? How am I going to do this? I just didn't have the space to really tell good stories in that space. And I didn't want it to be a reminder calendar. So I came up with this crazy idea to see if I could get some students to help me. And I did. I asked if I could get some students. I had a couple of students come in. And so we started in February of one school year, and they worked until June when they graduated to build up the Facebook likes. And we were super excited when we hit the 500 mark. It was really exciting. Our little community only had 1,200 people in it. We had 350 kids in our school. So we were like, yes.
Wow.
We can do that.
And who were
That's
these
incredible.
The students, yeah, so I had 2 seniors, 2 kind of high flyers, and kids that were kind of bored, right? Like both of them were girls, and they were just in study hall, and I kind of just did I kind of walked through and kind of see who I would want to deal with. And they were, when I approached them about it after the board said yes, I had to share who I was thinking of asking to get the approval. And when I told them, they were super excited, super motivated, And I started by sharing the Intel social media guidelines as a way to sort of, I said, this is what we are going to expect in asking these students to help us tell the stories, because I don't have time to create my own social media guidelines. And the Intel social media guidelines were amazing. And so we met every Monday and we planned out what stories we were going to tell, and they pretty much had free reign. Like, I literally made them admins on the school Facebook page.
And everything went perfectly from then on in.
Yeah, pretty much, except for the next year. So the next fall, I was like, okay, so I need some new social media interns. My 2 seniors had graduated, and they both did a fantastic job and really kind of laid the groundwork, which was exciting. But I knew I needed more kids because I could not be responsible for telling the story all the time. And so I found a couple more. I had a junior and a freshman, and they had agreed to do that. And we decided to crowdsource the hashtag for our district. And so we put it out on, we made a Google form with some options, and we had researched if the options were viable in terms of the other Twitter world. And people were voting, and we came up with the hashtag. And I was really excited to announce the new hashtag for, the crowdsourced hashtag on the first day of school. And I was doing the in-service, and I was super excited. And then I was also talking about the social media interns and how we need to tell positive stories for the school. And then somehow that segued into Carol Dweck's growth mindset work. And we don't know how to do this yet. And we're working on this, and we're going to get better, and I can't wait, and that kind of thing. And it was really excited. Kickoff meeting. Schellsburg Pride is the hashtag, and we're rocking. And then I go to the Twitter feed, and I'm like, oh, you know what I forgot to do? Can't believe I forgot to do this, but I forgot to get the Twitter name, an account name for the hashtag. So one of my lovelies made the Twitter name to match the hashtag. I have no control over the hashtag, but I can always see who posts, except when the Schellsburg Pride user appears, and it's not me. And I'm like, crap. And then they say something snarky, and I still have it somewhere in my archives. They said something like, school's going to be really fun, but it isn't yet. Something like that.
Oh, it's mindset.
I was like, thank you, Schellsburg Pride, for keeping this space positive and telling our really great stories. And then I direct messaged Schellsburg Pride, and I said, when I find out who you are, you better hope that this is the worst tweet that I see from you. Radio silence. There's been no Schellsburg Pride tweet for a long week.
Good thing you finalized that. It's like, there's been no Schellsburg Pride. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, no Schellsburg Pride from the icon, but there was Schellsburg Pride hashtags because I tweeted with that.
So did you find out who it was?
Oh yes. So I was not on duty to supervise the football game one night, but I had the Twitter notifications on in case Schellsburg Pride, the account, tweeted, because I had to know. And so I had taken my kids, I think we were at McDonald's Playland or something, and my notification goes ding, and I look, and it's Schellsburg Pride. And I read it, and it says something like, is that a comeback I smell? Nope, just nachos and popcorn in the concession stand. It's 30 seconds to halftime. See you soon. And I was like, yes, that's what we want. And then a couple, like in the end of the third quarter and the close to the end of the game, there were positive tweets about the game. And witty. The tweets were witty and really positive. And so I responded, hey, Schellsburg Pride, nice tweeting. Thanks for taking care of us. And then I direct messaged Schellsburg Pride, and I said, I don't know who you are, but you're witty and smart and I want you on the team. See me in my office at 10 o'clock Monday morning, and I don't know who you are, so I can't give you a pass. So tell your teacher I want to see you, and I'll send one back with you. This is where the story gets really good. So, so I'm in my office.
This is edge of your seat type stuff.
And guess who walks in? The school board president's son.
No.
I cannot make this up. That really happened. Yep, that really happened. And I say,
it's like a Disney movie.
Yeah, I say, oh my gosh, it's you. And he says, I'm really sorry about the first tweet. I thought it was really stupid. And then Shullsburg Pride actually got some traction, so I guess it's not so dumb. He said, I couldn't imagine why school would want to have a hashtag. And he said, and then I kind of started looking around, and lots of schools have them. I said, yeah, see, I'm the cool principal. And so he says, so what do you want me to do? And I said, I want you to tweet. I want you to tweet important stories. I want you to tweet what you see happening. I want you to be our tweeter. And I said, I want you to live tweet games and important moments, but I also want you to capture what's happening in the classrooms and what, not just high school, because we were in a K-12 building. So telling the kindergartner story was important too, and that shared experience. And I said, and I need you to get people to know about Shullsburg Pride, whatever that is. And he says, okay, I can do that. And so that started, that rounded out our team. We had one person focused on Facebook, one person focused on Instagram, and one person focused on Twitter. And the stories were different in every space because the party is different in each social media. So the stories were different. And each Monday I met with the team for about 15 to 20 minutes, and we did some planning. You know, what stories were we going to tell? What was coming up on the calendar that we weren't announcing it, but what was coming up on the calendar that we wanted to talk about? What stories were we going to generate based on things that had happened? And then we got really good about second semester because we had sort of a content calendar planned and we kind of had that process worked out, and I trusted them with my life, literally my life. And in the second semester, we started to audit what we were doing to make sure that we were telling the stories of everyone. We started to count, you know, how many pictures had were there more boys, were there more girls, were our Hispanic students represented as much, because as they were in our building, we had 5% population that were Hispanic. So we needed to make sure that 5% of our posts had representation. And so there was a ton of learning involved in that they had never, ever considered. But it was super exciting. And the craziest, coolest thing was we got 4 articles on the front page of our bigger regional paper that in our school had never been featured on the front page of those before. But the reporters were seemingly there like monthly. And our local paper featured more stories from our little town, you know, because we weren't the hub of their paper. So we always kind of thought it was biased news. But they started to feature us more because they had more to go on. And often the stories that were on our social were the stories that ended up in the print paper. So it was a really exciting time. And that was in like 2012, 2013. And what's really sad is that when I left, the person that followed me didn't have the same set of skills, the same set of understanding about technology and social media. So it has literally all but died. And they were literally the ones who got the magic started, because the other story that goes along with these amazing kids that I worked with was, it turns out Joe Sanfilippo and myself submitted workshop proposals to our SLATE conference, the state level technology conference. And apparently they were quite similar in nature, and they asked us if we could present together. Well, I
attended that session.
And that's funny. I had actually met Joe on Twitter, of course. And so I knew who he was, and I knew he was wild and crazy. And my teachers were really enjoying his tweets because he's such a celebratory person. You can't not love him. And so we got connected through email, and we talked about it, and I told him that I had social media interns, and he about fell off his chair. He's like, what? Are you crazy? I said, just a little, but it works. And so we managed to present together for 2 years in a row at Slate. And it was really great work. And we were really proud of that work that we did together. And he's gone on to like influence many, many, many hundreds of thousands of people with his work in social media and telling the school story. We were super proud of that work because like you said, Josh, for those people in our session, I really believe that it propelled that work forward. And it was really exciting because that was also the time that educator effectiveness was really coming into play. And we had to have evidence of the work we were doing to support, our meeting of our own educator effectiveness standards or whatnot. And I was able to, in the second year, show people how to directly link what they were doing in their educator effectiveness standards to their social media posts as more evidence of their effectiveness. And it really was important to the work. And one other story sort of along the same lines. It's a really good story. So telling the story is really just as important to teachers as well. So at the point in time where we started a school Facebook page, I also had a couple of teachers start their own classroom pages as a pilot. And it turns out one of the teachers I had moved from kindergarten to second grade the summer before, and she doesn't probably know this, but several parents requested to not have her as a teacher. In our district had a policy that we honor all requests. So essentially there were the kids who requested a different teacher and then the kids who got her. And that year she started to use her Facebook page and she started to use video. So we moved to math expressions. And so she knew when the parents would have a little bit of a struggle doing the quote unquote new math, which I think is better, by the way. And so she would make videos of the lesson of how to do the specific math in the way that math expressions, the textbook was trying to help them. And she did fun things and she featured all of the kids and she made videos and she did tons and tons of work and she told the story on her Facebook page. And the next summer, 13 of the 18 parents requested her as the teacher.
Oh,
and I had an issue because clearly it wasn't an equal split. And for reasons unbeknownst to that have nothing to do with the social media story that I'm telling, both of us left the district and went to CISA that summer. And so the problem was essentially solved just because we weren't there. She wasn't there for students to be placed with. But nobody has told the story of their classroom better than she did that I've probably ever seen. And I was so proud of her because her effectiveness was on display in every story she told. And it came back around when parents saw what was happening in the classroom. And it goes back to what Joe says every time. Never miss the opportunity to say something positive about your school or your classroom. And you can change culture. You can impact culture in 10 seconds. And she did it.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing.
You have certainly impacted culture in about 30 minutes tonight, and your effectiveness was truly on display. So it was absolutely a pleasure talking to you. As our listeners are likely to want to get in touch with you and learn a little more about, I would say, like to me, I'm still trying to figure out how in the middle level can I get kids involved in social media interning, because I do a subpar job keeping up with the social media
it's
accounts.
Hard.
It is hard. So I'm sure there's others like me. So how might people learn more about what you're up to and get in touch with you?
Melissa Emler, anywhere on social. I'm Melissa Emler on Twitter, Melissa Emler on Insta, which is my new fave. And I'm also, I have a Melissa Emler Facebook page, which a lot of educators follow me there. I've started to be a little bit more boisterous there. So I don't know if you've experienced this, and I don't mean to go over your normal time, but I think there's some educators who live on the edge of fear. And even for myself, I put myself out into Twitter really early, and I'm totally comfortable putting things out there like that. But what I did start to notice is that as the space became noisier and noisier and noisier with educators that are learning and getting out in that space, I had a harder time finding my voice. In fact, I lost it for some time. And I would say that I've left Twitter mostly. I mean, I'm still there, but I'm not really active as much as I was. And part of it was because in this multi-passionate education entrepreneur space that I'm in, this dual role, I've not really known who my audience is, where it is, or how boisterous I can be. And I'm very passionate about the work that I do. And I don't think that a lot of the way that I think is in line with way many other educators think. And yet I don't think that they wouldn't think that way if they were just exposed to some of the thinking. So I've used my Facebook page recently to sort of, and my Instagram to sort of tell the story of what I'm thinking. I've gotten a little bit more transparent with where I'm at. And I've said, I don't care. This is how I am. But I don't want to lock up my personal feed with all these opinions about school because, you know, I kind of got friends who kind of want to see my kids and want to hang out with me. So I kind of moved. So that's my story about how social media has evolved for me as well. And maybe others have had that feeling. But I'm Melissa Emler everywhere.
So do you have a separate education Facebook page that you're talking on that you keep separate from your kids and your animals and Melissa Emler, have my own Facebook page as a business might. And I really just use it as just a space to be. And then I have my personal profile. And so I certainly have educator friends in my personal profile, but I'm not going to post my educational thinking on my personal profile because I feel it's an easy place to attack me. And I feel like people have to do some of the same learning that I've done in order to understand that. And so I don't really feel like having the debate on my personal Facebook page. So I respect those people who want to see my kids and see how cool and fun I am. And I put all that mean, sassy, let's change education stuff on my Facebook page. It's not mean. I was being facetious, but it's thought-provoking at times for sure. Thanks for asking.
Well,
thanks for doing that. Thanks for sharing and prodding and inspiring us. I love to hear what you have to say and really sit back and think about it.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, great chatting with you, Missy Misdemeanor Emler. I had to fit that in. It's been on my mind the entire night. I'm like,
I love it.
It works. It works.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we are
night.
going to bid you adieu. You have a good night, and we will catch you in a future episode probably. What a great conversation with Missy, and so down to earth, but so sure of her principles and the things that she cares about, and really full of a lot of great experience we could all learn from.
And I love how she talks about growth mindset, but then she also lives growth mindset. And she says, I learned this about myself and Twitter, and so now I'm doing this other thing, and I'm finding my own voice again. We're all learners, in our best way. We're all learners for a lifetime, and she's modeling that and showing that to all of us in a great way. So impressive and multi-passionate. I love that. That's how she describes herself.
Some people go their whole lives trying to find one passion, and she is multi-passionate. That is awesome. And I like all the Joe Sanfilippo references, and for sure, if you're not out there following him, I'm not even going to attempt to spell it. I'll have to look it up later, but he is truly an inspirational guy. And his web is really expanding. I mean, he gets around the entire country sharing about sharing, really. And I know I've been impacted personally by him, and that's why we have a hashtag, and that's why we have school social media accounts, and we're really trying to share the story and get teachers to buy in that they're part of the story too, and that they can share and add as well.
Yeah, he does great work, and he says it the right way, and he's got the energy and the thought process and the connection with people to back it up. He's just a good guy with a great message, and it's we're lucky to have people like him out there advocating for us to advocate for ourselves as educators, and he's a good dude.
Indeed. Well, if you're out there and you've got a story to share, we're always open to hearing from you and having you on the podcast. And perhaps, you've got some great social media for your schools or a great school hashtag. Feel free to pass that along to us as well. We'd love to hear about and amplify the voice of your kids and your teachers and your districts because that's what we need. We need to show people how awesome our schools really are. And I think in many ways you're seeing that across the country right now, and that teachers really want people to realize and want people to value what we're all bringing and doing every day. So thank you once again for listening to the Stories in EDU podcast. We hope you had some laughs, got inspired, maybe learned something, and in some ways, most importantly, we hope you join us again on another episode of Stories in EDU, which you can find every Tuesday on your favorite podcast place. Subscribe on iTunes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Stories in EDU podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Until next time, thanks again.